This week we talk about the difference between a mix and a formula, some of the process involved with creating your own frozen dairy or non-dairy formula, and some of the cost and time involved with owning and operating the equipment necessary to pasteurize and homogenize your own frozen dairy or non-dairy product.
Hey podcast listener, this is the THC Foodie, where you can get the scoop on the business of THC-infused foods. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, check out the THCfoodie.com and icecreamprivatelabel.com.
Question that people are asking me is, I'm going to manufacture my own product. How do I make my ice cream mix, my yogurt mix, my sorbet mix?
What's the difference between a mix and a recipe?
The recipe or the formula is to design a base mix to make your dairy or non-dairy product. So if somebody says, I want to make ice cream, and they're making it at home, they are coming a lot of times with the understanding that they're going to put milk and eggs from the grocery store and sugar together and maybe some guar gum, and they're going to make an ice cream mix. And that's where we start the conversation about, do you have a formula? Do you understand what it takes to legally, through the Department of Agriculture laws, to pasteurize that product? And that's where we get into the discussion of, no, I didn't know that. What are my options?
Why do you need this mix? Or do we call it a formula at this point?
We call a formula is on paper. A mix is actually what you put into the freezer and flavor, infuse to make your finished product. An individual wants to freeze and flavor and infuse, in some cases, a dairy or non-dairy product. Could be a sorbet, yogurt, gelato, ice cream. And it could be different butterfats of ice cream. So what they would need is they need a base mix that they would put in the freezer and then flavor it. The question is, do they make their own with raw ingredients, make their own on site? Or do we call a dairy that's already making a mix to sell it to this operator? Those are the two choices in many cases that individuals have. One of the reasons that I have this discussion is most folks understand a little bit about the practice of freezing and flavoring a product, but they don't understand the pasteurizing circuit to meet the health requirements to make a legal ice cream mix or sorbet mix.
So how do I go about making my dairy or non-dairy base mix?
Well, after you've established a formula that works at your house, then what you do is you would talk to a dairy and say, I want to buy your cream and I want to buy your milk powder. And then what would happen is in your facility, you'd have a blend tank. You would be putting in a certain percentage of cream, milk powder, water, sugar, stabilizer, and any other ingredient that is going to make up your product. The percentages that you put in are going to determine the butter fat that you have. And the butter fat ranges anywhere from 10% to 14% butter fat in order to be called ice cream. So what's going to happen is you are going to put all these ingredients in a tank, and it's going to agitate slowly, and then it's going to go through a circuit of pasteurization and homogenization. What that means is that we're going to heat the product to a certain temperature in a certain amount of time. We're going to cool it to a certain temperature, very specific temperature, in a certain amount of time. And within that period of doing that process, you're also sending it to an homogenizer, which is essentially a piece of machinery that is punching all the molecules together. If you buy unhomogenized milk in the store, you'll see what I call a fat plug at the top of the bottle. So the label might say shake before drinking, because homogenization eliminates the separation of fat from the water. If you were going to be making a chocolate mix, then I would also say that you could do that process, the pasteurization and homogenization process, at the same time, and then it really infuses the chocolate molecules into the mix. The equipment that's required and the cleaning can add 30 to 40% of cost. It also creates a certain sense of liability. So if there's a bacteria problem, then you are being held responsible. If you are buying what I call a white mix from a dairy, then it's a shared responsibility. So you're making ice cream with a pasteurized white mix that another licensed dairy has made. In most cases, people end up agreeing that they're not at a stage where they should be making their own mix. They're going to find a dairy that will make it for them.
What's the time difference between creating your own mix and using a dairy's mix? Regarding actually coming up with the base, the formula, and then getting all of the ingredients and then shipping it to your manufacturing facility and all of the steps involved, is there like a huge time difference between?
Yeah, I would say that, creating a formula and testing it could take maybe 30, 40 days, utilizing the right people. There's a lot of formulas that you can make a variation of. So that's not really difficult. What you would need to know is, do you want it all natural or not? What butterfat do you want? And maybe you want organic sugar instead of bleach sugar. Maybe you do not want carrageenan in the product. Maybe you want a locust bean gum or guar gum. So there's some testing that needs to be done there. And the testing would be, you could even manufacture it, make it at home in your kitchen by putting it on the stove, cooking it to a certain temperature, letting it cool, putting it in the refrigerator, and then on the next day, you would then take that mix and put it in your home ice cream freezer. So you can test certain things at home to get an understanding of the quality of the mix that you make. You won't be able to test butterfat, but you'll be able to get an understanding of the components. Then what you'll do is you'll test at a lab for the butterfat that you want. And if it doesn't matter to folks, what I would say is just remember, the higher the butterfat, the higher the cost of goods. When you're making it could add 30, 40 days for the formula, and then you would need to get another license from the Department of Agriculture because you're going to be pasteurizing. And then what's going to happen is you need to have an understanding of the pasteurization process, as well as the process of pre and post cleaning the equipment. Because when problems happen, it's with stuff that's left somewhere, that's caught somewhere in a hiding place, that is now delivers the problem into a new batch. So the process of pasteurization is to kill bacteria. That's the main purpose of it. And it just doesn't have to be a dairy product. It could be sorbet. I mean, people pasteurize drinking water. They can filter it, they can pasteurize it. So it's a process that's designed to kill bacteria, not all bacteria, but a percentage of the bacteria. So once the product's frozen, then you start at a certain reasonable count of bacteria that will then grow from there based on the temperature that it's. So the equipment could take you another 60 days to get, and within that 60 to 90 days while you're ordering equipment, you could be trained. So I would say it would add all in all maybe another 90 days and additional costs in labor, utility, chemicals, and water for the pasteurizing process. That's why when you break it down to the cost per gallon, a lot of times people decide, I'll let the dairy start it off and then I can always make my own later. There are pasteurizing machines you can buy, $25,000 to $40,000. They're all put together, and all you have to do is send a utility to those, what they call a skid, and then you're ready to roll.
Do you have a product or business you want to share? We want to know what you have to say. Leave us a comment on our website at thethhcfoodie.com or on Twitter at SafeTHCFoods.